All you people that don't know Soulcalibur, please raise your hands. Yeah, I thought so. Everybody knows Soulcalibur. This series of Versus Fighters has been a mainstay ever since the first part got released in arcades and as an exclusive on the Sega Dreamcast. Or was that game the first part in the series? Technically, no. The widely acclaimed Dreamcast exclusive, which got an Xbox Live Arcade release last year in July, had a predecessor. Soulblade was released in 1996 in Japanese arcades as Soul Edge. It was the perfect follow-up to Namco's lucrative and prestigious Tekken series, also being one of the first 3D games to feature weapons integrated in the combat system. It was an instant smash hit in arcades, and the PlayStation port, although technically inferior, was also a top-tier title for the then roughly 1.5-year-old console. Although it might not be what you'd call an obscure title, Soulblade would since be dominantly overshadowed by its sequel, Soulcalibur, that will later become the moniker for the rest of the series. But we'll talk about that game a little bit later. Let's first get back to the one that started it all. Do remember I'll be reviewing the PlayStation version of this game, featuring some extra characters and modes in addition to the arcade versions. According to some sort of obscure timeline, the story of Soulblade is supposed to be set in 1584 AD. Legend tells of a sword that is the most powerful weapon in history that can bring peace and prosperity in the right hands and destroy worlds in the wrong hands. As is to be expected, the sword has fallen into the wrong hands, more specifically those of the dreaded pirate Cervantes of Spain, who has apparently turned into some sort of immortal ghost/zombie-ish thing under its influence. Both the forces of good and evil are of course not gonna stand for this, so it's time to kick some Latino ghost cojones and attempt to obtain the sword for themselves, some for revenge and some for non-revenge. Soulblade has a cast of 10 playable characters, of course not including some of the palette swaps, and a final boss. Mitsurugi is a samurai from Japan, Siegfried Stauffen is a knight from Germany, Taki is a female ninja also hailing from Japan, Li Long is a nunchuck-wielding Chinese assassin, Sophitia is a priestess from Greece, Rock is a super buffed gladiator-type fighter from England, Valdo is a thing from Italy, and representing Korea are female halberd warrior princess Sungmina and sword fighter Huang. This game includes most of the classic fighting game modes, and then some. Arcade mode pits you against computerized opponents, Versus mode lets you play against a friend, Survival mode again has you go head to head with the computer, but only restoring a portion of your health after each round, allowing you to get a high score by beating more and more opponents consecutively. Team Battle allows you to pick a team of multiple characters and face off against one another. Time Attack has you facing the clock, and you can train your mad fighting skills in training mode. New to this game is an RPG-style story mode called Edgemaster mode. In this mode, you basically walk around on a world map looking for people to fight under preset conditions, following the story of your character of choice. Of course, being pretty much the first time a concept like this was ever attempted in a fighting game, it's all very crude and rudimentary. It doesn't really matter which character you pick, his or her story is still going to be pretty much the same, with the exception of maybe one or two different opponents. The whole concept of earning new weapons and beating people under special conditions like your health draining or your opponent healing would be a mainstay throughout the rest of the series. The drawback to this mode is that it gets very tedious very quickly. I could barely stand finishing this with one character, that character of course being Evil Siegfried Nightmare. Leave alone with all of them. My original PlayStation memory card apparently being broken doesn't do a whole lot of good either, especially when I want to record some cool things to show you all. Oh well. A concept they ended up leaving out of the rest of the series is that of the weapon gauge. Every time you or an opponent block an attack, the little gauge found below your health bar is depleted, and when it's empty, the character loses his or her weapon. All in all, that's pretty original. If it weren't for the fact that every character's unarmed move list is exactly the same, which is a problem for a crude and basic 3D fighting game that doesn't have that much variation to begin with. The fighting scheme in this game is of course pretty basic when compared to modern day fighting games, but quite intricate when compared to other fighting games at that time. The basic moveset of every character consists of a horizontal attack referred to as a vertical attack B, guarding G, and a kick K. Pressing either A or B in combination with G results in a throwing animation. Every character having 3 grapple moves, 2 from the front and 1 from the back of the opponent. Every character also has some unique special moves and 2 or 3 unblockable attacks that are slow but do a ton of damage. Apparently they toned down the difficulty for the home system port and the upgrade for the original arcade version, but things can get pretty difficult, mostly of course due to the very crude fighting mechanics and completely crippled damage indicator. The best way to get through the game is to spam Siegfried's BBB combo, which can get a little tedious to say the least. No matter which weapon Siegfried uses, the opponent also seems to take an insane amount of damage, which is of course a lot more realistic when you think about it really, but for a fast-paced arcade fighter, that's kind of a pain in the ass. Considering the fact this game dates way back to 1996 and that it's one of the first 3D versus fighters in history, the graphics are still pretty damn good. The characters don't have that pixelated Robot Man vibe they had going on in Tekken and Tekken 2, although some characters stand head and shoulders above the others when it comes to overall characters design. Cervantes and Voldo are 2 great examples of that, and pretty much set the standard for how the characters in the sequels were gonna look like. To hardcore fans of the Soulcalibur series that haven't played this game yet, the music is going to sound very familiar. A lot of the tunes from this game, mostly the voice work by the announcer, was used from Soulcalibur on, all the way till Soulcalibur IV. Me being a big fan of the series, I have to say I was surprised to see how many elements that remain throughout the whole Soulcalibur franchise actually originated from this game. The story of Soul Edge, most of the central characters, the announcer, some of the music, and the basic gist of the fighting mechanics all came from this seemingly ancient 3D fighter. Although the damage indicator is crippled beyond belief, Edgemaster mode quickly gets stale and repetitive, as it will in pretty much every game in the series after this one. And the controls sometimes have the nasty tendency to not be very responsive. It's still a treat for any fighting game fan to play this game, and so I can recommend this to anyone who wants to get back to the roots of one of the greatest fighting game franchises of all time. Do join me again next time, as I'll be covering Soulcalibur for the Dreamcast and Xbox Live Arcade. This was Denno, signing out. Take care.